Hey guys, Mr. T here. This is another video. This is on graphing functions, so making y equal a function of x. So if you were to make a function of x, which we've been calling f of x, equal the value of y, that gives you a link between the x and the y variables, and so it makes it possible to graph functions, because on a Cartesian plane the x-axis represents x values and the y-axis represents y values. So if the x values go through any function, it's going to spit out a y value if you've made the y equal to whatever the function of x is. So for example, let's say the function f, so the function that we're going to be using to use as the example was to square whatever the input is. So based on our previous video and our previous knowledge, if the function is to square the input, the result of the function of x is going to be the input x being squared, because the function is squaring the input. The input is x in this case, so the output is going to be that input of x being squared. So if you made y equal the function of x, you would have y is equal to the function of x, which at the same time is equal to whatever x is squared. So that can be graphed because you can work out the y value for different values of x. So we know that for this function the f of x is going to be x squared, and that also at the same time equals y for the purposes of graphing it. So what's f of 1 going to be? It's going to be 1 squared is going to be 1. So that's our first y. F of 2 is going to be 2 squared, and the y value, therefore, because all of these are going to equal the y values on the Cartesian plane, is going to be 2 times 2, it's going to be 4. What's f of 3? It's going to be 3 squared, it's going to be 9. Let's chuck in some negative values here in red. So it's also going to, we're working out the function of it being -1. It's going to be -1 going through the function of being squared. -1 times -1 is going to be 1. F of -2 is going to be -2 squared is going to be 4. F of -3 is going to be -3 squared is going to be 9. So what you can see, we've plugged in a bunch of values of x through the function, and now the extra step that we're doing here to graph it is making those results equal y values, equal y. So that makes it possible to graph these results, because we've seen that for an input of the x being 1, the value of y is going to be 1. So x being 1, the value of y is going to be 1. The second x value of 2, going through the function, the y value is going to be 4. So that's there. For the third positive x value that I put in, 3, the y value is going to be 9. So you can see that it's going to be a curved line. We need to deal with the negative values here. So for -1, the y value, -1 going through the function of being squared, the y value ends up being 1 as well. For the second input that I negative input that I put in, -2, the y value was 4. The third negative input that I put in was 9. The y was 3. -3. The y value was 9. So that results in a nice little curved graph here. So I'll try my best to draw it with this Apple Pencil. It's not going to be exact, but you just need to get the gist of it. That is an example of drawing a function graphically by making the results of the function f of x, f of 1, f of 2, etc., equal y values on a Cartesian plane. So that's just an introduction to the idea of drawing functions graphically. You're going to be using that in the next couple of exercises. Hopefully that helps you out, and I'll see you in the next video.